Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Dimple Patel. I teach Library and Information Science at Central University of Himachal Pradesh. Today I am going to talk about virtual information resources in the thrust areas of the organization. The learning objectives would be to learn about various virtual resources of information and how to enhance the quality of services of special libraries by using these virtual information resources, and to learn about few discovery tools which will help you in finding and locating these information resources. Information usually has two key aspects: content, that is subject or the material dealt with in the resource, and second is format, that is whether it is available as a book or as a journal article or as a patent document. The categorization of information sources can be done in various ways. The one which I am about to present is not hard and fast. You will find various kinds of categorization of information sources in various texts. This is, I have categorized accordingly to this particular lesson. The first is by content. By content, the information resources can be categorized as primary information resources, secondary information resources, and tertiary information resources. Primary information resources are the ones which contain original content, generally based on research. These are unorganized content. For example, a research thesis which is produced as a result of either doctoral program or a master's degree program or as a MPhil program. So these are original, nascent, new information. And primary information sources generally are very specific in topic. The PhD thesis or the MPhil thesis or master's degree thesis, the topics are very specific. The examples of primary information resources are thesis, dissertations, journal articles. Even patents are considered as primary information sources because patents are given to new products and services. Personal diaries of eminent persons, even these are original. So they are considered as primary information resources. Videos and photographs of current events, autobiographies, original public records, and such things come under primary information resources. Secondary information resources are generally the ones which derive the content from primary sources of information, and then these are organized and consolidated as information packages. For example, textbooks, encyclopedia articles, handbooks, biographies. Autobiographies are considered primary, but biographies are considered secondary because it is written by a third person. And also historical fiction. These are some of the examples of secondary information sources. Tertiary information sources are those which will guide you towards the primary and secondary sources of information. They act as locating or finding aids to primary and secondary sources of information. Examples are library catalogs, which help users in finding the books or the material available in the libraries. Bibliographies, bibliography of bibliographies, bibliographic databases are all examples of tertiary information sources. Under type of information resources by type, that is categorization by type, I have categorized them as e-books, e-journals, bibliographic databases, electronic theses and dissertations, that is ETDs, online public access catalogs, OPACs, or what we call as webpacks nowadays, etc. E-book, as the term suggests, is an electronic book. It is nothing but a print book, a version of the print book which is available in a computer readable format. It can be a born digital book, that means it can be developed since the beginning in the computer itself, created in the computer itself, or it can be a digitized e-book, that is you scan a print copy of it and store it as a soft copy in the computer. You must be familiar with Amazon Kindle. Amazon Kindle is a kind of device which are generically called as e-readers. Some books require e-readers, some e-books require specific e-readers. Some can also be read on the computers and mobile phones. And most of the commercial publishers today are producing many titles in e-book format. If you want to get a feel of what an e-book is, there are certain open access websites where open access books are, full text are available. For example, Directory of Open Access Books, DOB, or Intech Open Books, Springer Open Books. These are the websites where you will find full text of books in electronic format. But right now, the situation is such that most of the e-books available as full text in open access are in the field of science and technology. The next is electronic journals. These are the print versions of journals in electronic format, that is serial publications. They can either be subject journals or they can be magazines also. They are generally available in HTML or PDF format. And these can be procured for the library based on either subscription for a year or even as pay-per-view model. That is, depending on the number of views of articles on that particular website, the publisher will charge the library. Examples of open access journals are DLib magazine, Annals of Library and Information Science by NISCARE, DeciDoc Journal of Information, Library and Information Technology, Directory of Open Access Journals. The last one is an example of Directory of Open Access Journals. For your users in your library, you will have to go through this directory to identify the open access journals available with the subjects which are being taught or research is being done on in your institution library. The next information source is a bibliographic database. These are very important tools for library for selecting and acquiring the relevant information resources for their users. The bibliographic database is much more rich in its description of the documents and also it will help you in locating from where you can get these documents. Unfortunately, most of the databases today, bibliographic databases, are commercial and proprietary. But there is some work going on by InflibNet where they are trying to make an online bibliographic database of all the university libraries in India, which is called as INDCAT. Bibliographic databases can either be general in scope or they can be subject specific in a particular subject or a group of subjects. Some of the databases will also provide you links to the full text of the articles or books or other content which it is dealing with, provided you have subscribed for those resources. Examples of bibliographic database are EBSCO Online Research Databases by EBSCO, Library and Information Science Abstracts, which is being published by ProQuest. The next information resources are electronic thesis and dissertations. The print version of thesis and dissertations in electronic format. Mostly these are made available by universities and research institutions on their research repositories. There are also some commercial publishers who publish research theses, but you have to buy them or subscribe to their services and then only you will get access to them. But it is a good indication that in India, InflibNet under MHRD has taken the initiative to develop Shodh Ganga, which is an ETD repository for all Indian universities. Most Indian universities, both central and state, have signed MOUs with the InflibNet, and the full text of the thesis, once the PhD degree is awarded to the student, is uploaded on Shodh Ganga. This increases transparency in research. Also, it helps researchers to avoid duplication of the same research. And it does justice to the publicly funded institutions making their research output available openly. There is another good example of ETD, that is Shodh Gangotri, also a project of InflibNet, where the research proposals which are given by PhD students when joining for the PhD program in any Indian university is also hosted full text. The synopsis is hosted. Here again it increases transparency and also it helps future students to avoid duplication of the same research. The other global examples are Network Digital Library of Theses and Dissertations from the US, DASH, that is Digital Access to Scholarship at Harvard from Harvard University, British Library Ethos. More examples can be found in the e-text. The next type of information resources are online public access catalogs, OPACs. That is a library catalog which is available on the internet. So you can use either a open source software to host your OPAC. If you use open source software, you can even import catalog records from other libraries. For example, Library of Congress has open records. So you can import their library records into your database. Some of the examples are INDCAT. It is the online union catalog of Indian universities, again a project by InflibNet. Delhi Public Library. WorldCat. WorldCat is a type of union catalog of libraries around the world, but WorldCat is restricted to libraries which have membership in OCLC. Library of Congress in the US and British Library, UK. Information sources by format I have discussed under textual information, audio information, image information and video information. There are various formats. Again, when we come to file formats, the suggested format would be open file formats. Because if you use proprietary formats, for example, if you use a proprietary software to create your documents, it will obviously store the information in a proprietary file format. Tomorrow, if the software development of that particular software is stopped by the company, or for some reason the software is upgraded but the downgrade is not available, compatibility with the downgraded versions are not available, then your data gets stuck in the proprietary file format. And even to retrieve your own data which you have created over which you have copyright, to retrieve the data again you need permission from the software developer to retrieve your data. This problem you will not face if you are using open file formats. Hence, it is recommended that you create a digital document from the beginning using only a free and open source format where you can store your data in open file formats. Next categorization I have dealt is information resources by source, from where you are able to get this information. When we talk about virtual information resources, websites are the first stop which we try to look into. Websites can be individual websites, or they can be institutional websites, or they can be government websites, or corporate websites, or wiki sites, etc. Of course, the most easiest way to find information from websites is first go to a search engine, web search engine, and type in the keywords, and then you will get a list of websites. The second type of virtual information resource you can depend on to serve your users are digital libraries. Digital libraries contain information in digital format, and unlike the information which is available on web search engines, they are much more organized. The description of the resources is much more high quality in a digital library rather than in the website. Digital libraries can be either generic digital libraries, for example, Digital Library of India. Generic in the sense, I mean they can contain any type of file, resources on any subject, on any or all subjects, like that. Another example is Universal Digital Library. Digital libraries can be archives. Archives is a term we use to specify where the collection of information resources is very specific. For example, the Oxford Text Archive, where it contains only textual information. There is no other kind of information available on this website. Then there is American Memory Project, where the images and videos relating to American history are uploaded. So this can be termed as an archive because it deals only with American history. Then digital libraries can be domain specific, that is, the collection might relate only to a particular subject. For example, Librarians Digital Library, LDL, which is hosted by Documentation Research and Training Center, Bangalore. Digital libraries can also be institutional repositories, that is, the digital library is hosted by a particular institution. So naturally, the collection in these repositories are going to be the publications of the institute only and not any other publications. For example, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore has its own institutional repositories called the IISc ePrints. The next is networked digital libraries. Like in the traditional libraries, we have a system called as interlibrary loan for libraries to share their resources in order to serve their users. That is, if your library does not have any information resource, you can ask the user to apply for interlibrary loan with other libraries with whom you have a memorandum of understanding. In the same way, the content of digital libraries also can be shared amongst libraries. This concept is termed as networked digital libraries. But there are certain challenges you will face when you are trying to network different digital libraries, because even though if all the libraries are using open source software, the software may differ. One may be using DSpace, the other may be using ePrints, another may be using GSDL. So how do you make these three digital libraries to understand each other? Because the backend database may be different in all the three. So you will have to think about how you are going to manage this. For this, you need to follow open standards, and one of the open standards is OAI PMH, that is Open Access Initiatives Protocol for Metadata Harvesting. Another interoperability standard is OAI ORE, that is Open Access Initiatives Object Reuse and Exchange. In PMH, you can interoperate at metadata level. That is, you can harvest metadata from different libraries, present it to your user. Whereas in ORE, you can interoperate at full text level. That is, if the other library is allowing you, you can harvest not only the metadata but also the full text onto your server. So, maintaining the standards in data representation also is another challenge, because you may be using a particular metadata standard, the other library may be using another metadata standard. Then also technological disparities. Your library may be having very good infrastructure, the other library may not be having very good infrastructure. So how do you manage this? These are the planning and management aspects you have to take care before networking your digital libraries. There are two very popular examples of network digital libraries. Both are from the US, that is National Science Digital Library and Networked Digital Library of Thesis and Dissertations, that is NDLTD. The next type of information resource is institutional repository. As I told, institutional repository is a digital library where the content of a particular institution is only uploaded. Institutional repositories can be used for many types of resources within an organization. You can use it for your internal circulars, notifications, memos, etc. You can also use it to showcase the output, that is academic as well as research output of the institution. So, institutional repositories provide many advantages. Number one is the institution gets lot of visibility globally, provided you are making your institutional repository accessible over the internet. Second is, since the research output is open to the world, it acts something like a evaluation tool for the type of research which is coming out of your institution. It endorses the quality of the research or the academic output of your institution. It also helps students. If you are making your institution output available in open access full text, it helps not only your own students but students around the world. Some of the examples are Electronic Thesis and Dissertations of IISc Bangalore, CDRI, that is Central Drug Research Institute Lucknow, Dash Digital Access to Scholarship at Harvard. There are many such examples. Next, I will talk about discovery tools for finding and locating information resources, especially on the internet. Of course, the first go-to point is a web search engine. There are plenty of examples, the most popular being Google, but there are other alternatives also, like for example yippee.com, which provides a very rudimentary type of classification also. That is, it tries to give you the results according to certain subject topics. Then there are something called as meta search engines. Meta search engines do not collect their own data. Instead, what they do is they refer the search query to other search engines like Google, Yahoo, Yippee, etc. So the advantage here is they act like a one window search. Instead, if you are not satisfied with the results of Google, you go to Yahoo. If you are not satisfied with Yahoo, you go to Yippee. But instead of going individually, if you use a meta search engine, what it does is it searches all these three search engines and provides you an integrated set of results from all these search engines. Examples are Dogpile, Metasearch.com, Surfwax and Copernic Agent. There are more examples in the e-text. Then there are also web directories. Unfortunately, the trend for web directories has fallen down. Like around 5 years back, Google had closed its web directory services. But still, there are a few web directories available. So, how are they different from search engines? Web directories consist of websites which are handpicked by humans. Where web search engines are automated software, web directories are made by human beings. The websites are actually handpicked by humans, and then not everything which is selected by somebody is included, but there is an editing process. Editors go through these websites. Only if they are satisfied regarding the content and quality, then it is made available in a web directory. One of the most popular and biggest is the Open Directory Project, ODP. In fact, earlier when Yahoo and Google had their own web directories, these were based on ODP. And also there is World Wide Web Virtual Library, VLib. Some specialist web directories examples are Biographicon. It is a directory of biographical entries. It not only consists biographies of eminent and popular persons, but also not so popular people. Business.com. It is a business directory which charges a fee for review and operates as a pay-per-click search engine. The next type of resource I am going to talk about are subject gateways. Subject gateways are again web directories. They are again handpicked by humans. They are again edited by editors. But there are some other criteria which make subject gateways very unique and very useful, especially for libraries to cater to their users. That is, so in subject gateways, there is also a summary given by subject experts. Generally, the humans involved in collecting information resources for subject gateways are subject experts. They are selected, they go through a selection process where their expertise is identified and only then they are allowed to contribute to the directory. Also, the organization of subject gateways is in tune with library organization techniques like library classification and library cataloging. Standard subject heading lists are used to categorize the information resources in these directories. Open Directory project is one example which I have already given under web directory also. Other examples are ARRAID, that is Aerospace and Defense Resources, ChemDex, Directory of Chemistry, Gateway to Subject Gateways. That is, if you want to find out what are the gateways, subject gateways, there is a website called Pinakis. Earlier it was being hosted by an Australian university, but now it is being hosted at Delhi University. The next type of information resources are metadata harvesting services. As you know, there are thousands of digital libraries, institutional repositories, digital archives. So going through each one of them, like if I take example of library science itself, there are hundreds of digital libraries in library and information science. Plus added to that, some of that information may be somewhere hidden in depth in institutional repositories. Within an institutional repository, you may have Department of Library Science collection. So instead of going through each one of this, which is humanly not possible to go through all this, it would be a better idea if I have a common search interface to search all open access digital libraries with one search. This is where OAI PMH comes to the rescue of open access digital libraries. What you can do is you can install PKP Harvester software in your library, collect the OAI URLs of the digital libraries which your users use most often, configure them in PKP Harvester, and whenever your users are going to search in your service, they are going to get an integrated result from all of the digital libraries which you have configured in the Harvester software. Already such services are existing. Examples are Oyster at University of Michigan Digital Library, Meta-LIS, Search Digital Libraries, that is SDL, which is hosted by Documentation Research and Training Center, Bangalore, SJPI Cross Journal Search Service, which is hosted by ISC Bangalore, then SEED at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, then Knowledge Harvester at Indian National Science Academy. Next, I am going to discuss advantages of virtual information resources. The first and foremost is physical space can be saved in the library, and thousands of documents can be stored in small spaces. Even memory cards, you can carry thousands of books. A single copy of a document can be used by multiple users at a time, which is not possible with physical documents. And subscription based electronic information resources, if you host it on a network, they can be accessed by your library users remotely also, like for example from their office or their home. And as libraries, there is also another advantage of virtual information resources, that is, in a physical scenario, if I want to purchase a book, I will have to purchase the whole book, whether I am going to read all the chapters in it or not. But in an e-book scenario, if a user wants only a single chapter from a book, you can purchase those. So this flexibility also is available and it is being provided by most of the publishers. Then text size can be changed. If I have problem with small font, I can make it bigger font and read comfortably, which again in physical printed editions it is not possible. And most of the viewing software today, whether it is for ebook or e-journal, provide the following facilities. That is, annotations can be added. User can add their own notes to the ebook or the e-journal article. Bookmarks can be saved. And dictionary lookup is available. If you come across a difficult word, immediately highlight the word and use the dictionary to know the meaning. Of course, it is not a utopia with virtual information resources. There are certain disadvantages and challenges. The first and foremost is you always require some or the other device to read the electronic version of any document. Second is use of proprietary file formats can create a problem. Also, in case of e-books, if the file format is very specific to the device being used, then if you change your device, again you end up with problems. Then another problem which we are facing in the e-book environment is different publishers are providing the e-books in different formats. So if I buy an Amazon Kindle, I may not be able to read books which I have downloaded from other websites. Then in case of e-books, there is another big disadvantage for libraries. That is, e-books are generally being provided to libraries only on subscription basis and not as one-time pay and I download the e-book and use it. So that increases the cost because the cost of e-books and e-journals has shot up a lot. And the publishers have come into lot of criticisms both from library professionals and especially universities for the rising prices of e-books and e-journals. Of course, the publishers provide discount packages, but these have their own issues. That is, the library is not given the freedom to choose the titles which they want in that package. So it is possible that the publisher might have mixed up a few high impact books or journals along with mediocre and low impact journals or books. So this is very, very disadvantageous for library and ultimately to the users. Then some publishers restrict usage of electronic information resources in terms of number of views. It may be restricted that this particular full text can be watched only so many number of times. Number of users, that only this many users can access, and they may not allow downloading of the article into the library server, saving and storing it. Or they may prevent, even if they allow download, they may prevent it from being printed. They may block the printing facility. But according to the latest Copyright Law of India, which was amended in 2013, libraries are now allowed to scan a copy of every book purchased in the library and keep it in the server, but the limitation is it should not be used for disseminating to the users. It should be used only as for archival purposes. So to summarize, we have seen various kinds of virtual information resources by content, by format, by type, and by source. The main focus here has to be providing right information to the right user at the right time. And this is where virtual information resources are going to come to your rescue, like open access digital libraries, institutional repositories, subject gateways, blogs and wikis maintained by library professionals, and also these the social networking websites will also help you in communicating, collaborating with the users. We have also covered the advantages and disadvantages or challenges which are produced by virtual information resources. So hopefully you will provide all these kind of virtual information resources to your library users. All the best and thank you.